customer relationship software works at every level. Obviously, for very large businesses, and particularly for very complex relationships, software tends to be pretty complex. But you could describe Excel as customer relationship management software if a business uses it to manage, let's say, a mailing list or contacts with a limited number of customers. So yes, customer relationship management software works at all levels, but its complexity varies with the task. There are two kinds of minimum for software packages. One is what you expect to do with it, and the other is what you expect to get out of using it. My rule of thumb is if you take the kind of processes you're used to managing your best customers with, your most valuable ones or your most frequent customers, and if you find that they're very manual or subject to lack of quality because of failure to take data from different interactions with the customers, then that's the kind of thing you ought to aim to get supported by CRM software, managing those customers. B2B to B2C is a continuum. It's not a divide as most people portray it in the textbooks. So if you're managing a major client and you're producing some very complex industrial product or service, it's arguable that even the best software doesn't support you completely, simply because your client could be a multinational with 50 different buying points and lots of different relationships. And so much depends upon the quality of the key account management and indeed what the customer wants. Right at the other extreme is the individual consumer relationship, often with a rarely tracked consumer. Retailing is a good example of that, where the loyalty card has created much more trackability, but nonetheless, it's a fairly light relationship. So those are the two extremes, and in the middle is the small and medium enterprise selling to businesses, but also the companies selling to consumers. So a bank selling to a high-value consumer customer is not much different from a small business selling to another small business customer. CRM software helps companies build relationships with customers, but once again, there's a problem with expecting CRM software to do everything. It doesn't. A good rule to follow is what you're doing now manually or with a bit of paper or different data sets, you should aim to do smoothly with good CRM software such that you're only using one piece of software. And when you've done that, then you can look at extending it. But to expect CRM software to enable you to do lots of different things that you've failed to do so far is unrealistic, with the one exception of where that software is properly integrated with a web interface in which customers are managing themselves. So a good example would be if you're buying motor insurance or a low-cost airline ticket where there is no manual intervention. The CRM system is there to support your customer managing the transaction and to support the customer returning when they need to change the transaction or buy another ticket and so on. And that, if you don't have that already, then the CRM software is the great enabler when integrated with the web interface. CRM software really helps most in creating a new way of doing business today when it's web integrated. A few years ago, I would have said the call center would be the prime focus for changing the nature of the relationship, and it still is an area where companies improving CRM software or getting it for the first time can make a really big difference. But the giant leaps forward have been really made by the web enablement of customer managed transactions and the CRM software to support that. Building your own CRM system can be successful. I know several companies, generally large companies, that have done it. It seems to be that there are some advantages in building it yourself. It isn't necessarily cheaper. And certainly today, it's not cheaper compared with the way it was many years ago when CRM software was very expensive. You can more reliably expect to get what you wanted, but it can take longer because there are so many good packages around. So if you build it yourself, you may end up with a beautiful version of what you wanted 2 years ago, rather than a pretty good but slightly less than perfect CRM system which does most of what you want, but now. The data aspects of CRM have been a graveyard of aspirations, really, for many companies, but other companies have had fantastic experiences with analysis. the start point is pretty much a given. The data you collect about your customers and their transactions with you should be used to find ways of keeping them longer, managing them more efficiently, selling them more. Typical or classical marketing and sales questions. And the initial analyses are usually very simple, provided your data quality is okay. And most CRM systems now have lots of safeguards to enable you to check the quality of the data as you're gathering consistency checks and so on. More advanced analysis of the data mining and so on, have helped companies, particularly when they have very high volumes of customers and large numbers of transactions, and where there's risk as well in dealing with customers. So the big gainers from lots of customer data, well analysed, credit card companies, general insurers, airlines also for managing loyalty schemes, and of course lately, and by lately I mean in the last 10 years or so, retail loyalty schemes have been a legend for the targeting that retailers have been able to do based upon customers' past transactions. However, the interesting thing is that the data collected is usually quite basic. Who's bought what, when, as a result of which promotion, and perhaps what did they do on their way to buying it. Nowadays with the web, where did they click, what did they investigate and so on. Quite simple really.